All right. So listen, I'm going to just be frank with you because I know that you're a straight shooter. People are worried about is the stock market about to crash? Have we found the bottom and it's now starting to go back up? Is this a head fake? Is the Federal Reserve going to raise rates all into next spring? What's going on with the food shortages, the fuel shortages? Is this all scare tactics? We got to dive in and give my community the honest answers so they know what to do with their money. Todd Horwitz, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Stephen, it's always great to be with you. It's a pleasure, and I love your topics because they're all very relevant.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so listen, I unlike most YouTubers, I read my comments religiously, and I see a lot of panic in the American people with the Russia-Ukraine war, Putin threatening nuclear weapons, Joe Biden willing to retaliate. We just put a nuclear submarine in the Arabian Sea this morning, probably to put pressure on Iran and Saudi Arabia at the same time. There's just so much fear in the market, in the food shortage. So let's just go down one by one. You've said in the past you think the market is going to go down 50 to 60%. Where are you at on that prediction? Are we still heading down, and how much further down? I know it's just you
I
going
think
off
we're
of
halfway there.
Okay, so you think we're halfway down the leg?
And it could get ugly. I mean, it's there's going to be some fear and panic, even more so, to start to set in once people realize that the markets are headed south. Again, usually it's the same pattern. They wait, and then finally at the same day, everybody decides to dump, and you get that big sell-off, which is really then a buying opportunity. However, I think this is very important for your listeners to understand as well. Your 401ks, your retirement income, the money that you've invested that's paid for, I'm not panicking. I wouldn't get out. Okay. I think that the markets have proven over their history that they return 8.5% year over year. Now, not every year, but again, you're not here. Your 401k is not for tomorrow. Your 401k is for your future. And I think you're making a mistake by trying to time out the market. Yes, I have an opinion, but it doesn't mean that I won't be long at certain points during the day, even though I think the market's going down a lot lower. And I think you have to separate yourself from reading and trading the news every moment to just saying, hey, I got good solid companies, I own good mutual funds. They're going to go up over time. These companies are not going out of business. And that goes to the second point, which is if you're looking for something to buy, look for a company, maybe something that you use, maybe Apple, any of the companies. You have to feel in your mind that the companies that you buy are going to be in business 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, because those are the companies that continue to return the dollars on a regular basis. And again, they can go lower, but over time, they have proven to be very solid investments. And you have to separate, again, the investing from trading. Most people are not traders, but they get involved because you got your iPhone, you're listening to the talking heads. It's all garbage. Just do your thing and make sure you're investing in good, solid companies and not buying a lot of garbage, because the garbage is what goes down and gets hurt the worst.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, be wise if you're doing trading with short-term money you need right now. But if it's long-term money that's locked up in a 401k or an IRA, you can't touch it till 59 and a half, and you're probably not going to touch it till 70. Don't panic with that money. Don't do something short-term and just panic sell. Okay, so that's good advice, because yeah, I mean, over time, it's really hard to see a buying opportunity when you're also feeling the pain.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm seeing that even though I deal in money every single day. The emotion of being human is like, oh my gosh, I'm down. I feel that panic starting to set in, and then I'm not thinking of the opportunity that is coming. But you believe from a loss perspective, we may only be halfway there, and the real panic selling hasn't started.
I agree. That's my statement. I'm confirming that I believe that I think it's going to get really ugly here, because there's a lot of factors. And even if we're being held up because of maybe what people think is going to happen in the election, okay, I think after the election, I think it's, you know, anything goes. I mean, we have too many problems to overcome. You cannot fix all of these problems, and you know, from the debt to the trying to borrow your way out of debt, from the high interest rates, which aren't going to stop anytime soon. And remember, at 4.125% right now, which is what 10-year notes are, I mean, people are going to start saying, you know, I was happy with 3.5%. They told me I could get a dividend income from the stock market. I'm going to put it in at 4.25% or 4.125% in a 10-year note. Or if you look at what they call the yield curve, and for those of you who don't understand what the yield curve is, interest rates start at bills, they go to notes, and then they go to bonds. Okay. And the shortest term is the most expensive right now. Right now, you can get a 3-month or a 1-year CD for over 4%. Okay. So why would you give it up for 10 years when you can do it for 1 year? And so this is almost a repeat of the late 70s when we went into that stagflation period and interest rates went crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that for people that are older that lived through the Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan era, this is starting to feel like a flashback. For those of us that are younger, I was born when Reagan was president, but I don't remember anything about him. But as I look back and read history, he took the country through a lot of pain because of Jimmy Carter, you know, getting the country into a lot of inflation issues that way.
That's
So
when I started trading, when he
yeah,
became president.
yeah, and you know the reason I bring you on, and I say this respectfully, is to show off your wisdom and not your age. But you've been professionally trading for longer than I've been alive, and that just shows the wisdom that you have of seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Where I read just the other day, I think it was on Zero Hedge or Yahoo Finance, that like 50% of all of the stockbrokers right now have never managed money during hard times.
Right.
So like
That's correct.
that's why I like having you on. You've got the wisdom, you've been through the hard and you've come out the other side. So so talk with me for a minute. Do you think the Federal Reserve is going to raise rates with inflation continuing to be high?
Yeah, and in the first time in history, we have a Federal Reserve raising rates into a recession. And I don't think they're going to stop. You might see, again, the next big meeting is, I think, November 2nd, 3rd, or right or the week before the election. You could see them halt for the election if they have a side. You know, the Federal Reserve is supposed to be a private organization, right? It's the banks, but of course, they've become much more related to government, especially as government appoints them. You could see a slight pause for a moment, but I would bet a lot of money that the 10 years got a chance to get to 6% before the end of the year. Okay. I see dramatic hikes because they can't slow the inflation down because we will not do what is the right thing to do. And that's, you know, again, you can slow inflation down easily by drilling oil, but that's not what we want to do. So the only way they can slow it down is by hiking rates. And you're already seeing the housing market starting to crash. You're seeing a lot of things collapse already, and we haven't even started yet.
Yeah, I have to imagine, like I try to put myself in the shoes of like a oil executive where the message coming out of the White House is drill right now to solve our problem, but just know once we're back on our feet, our sole goal is to put you out of business. Like what a confusing message. Like how do they move forward with this great transition, this great opportunity, and yet most of the people I know every day they're complaining about these gas prices and these food prices. So, I mean, is the answer just that we wait for a different president, or is the next administration going to carry on the make everybody drive electric and the gas is just always going to be high?
Well, I don't. I think that, you know, obviously, if you get a change in the Congress and maybe a bump up in the Senate, you might get some bills that might have a chance to get passed that would create more drilling. I think what you have to be aware of is that even if we could magically become all electric today, we don't have the power grid to do so. Okay, we can't. There are some small communities, and I always get this rebut from people that are members of mine, and they go, well, and here it's working. Yeah, I say, yeah, because you're in a population of 5,000. You're not in the billions of people. It does not work. You don't have the power grid. You know, one of the problems that we've seen from every president in my lifetime is that they continue to ignore the infrastructure. Okay, they promise they're going to fix the infrastructure, but they don't fix it. And we have a power grid that is so antiquated and so bad that we couldn't support it anyways. I mean, you saw in California, right? You buy a Tesla, but you can only charge it after 9 o'clock at night. I mean, that's telling you that we don't have the right source of power. And we got very fortunate in the summer that we didn't have rolling brownouts because of the power we're using now. The administration currently that's pushing this green agenda, which is fine. Listen, I'm not a believer in climate change, but if you are, God bless you. I have no problem with it. But the problem is they gave us no plan. They immediately put the oil guys out of business. Oil went from $30 a barrel to 120. Now we're back around 90. And they didn't give us a plan. How am I going to get there? What's going to cost us? What's going to cost each taxpayer? I mean, they just raised taxes on anybody who makes over $140,000. Didn't he say he wasn't going to raise it until you make 400? Well, we just got a tax hike because FICA tax goes from 140 now to 160. So you've got a 7.5% increase on that portion of your income. So again, give me a game plan on how we're going to get there. Don't just shut everything down, because it doesn't affect the carbon footprint. That's what we don't seem to understand. We're burning just as much. So is the carbon footprint changed because we ship it from Saudi Arabia here and get ripped off for it? Or could we just take care of it ourselves and actually help some of our allies like the UK and like Germany, who are starving for natural gas? And they're going into winter right now. And they're already paying 5 times what we pay for natural gas.
Yeah, just in today's broadcast, I talked about how, Putin has been systematically taking out Ukraine's energy and electric grid. And we're not even into the coldest months of the year. I mean, it has me very nervous for the people of Ukraine, has me very nervous for parts of the European Union. The World Economic Forum, this Klaus Schwab, convinces Germany to move a lot of their electric to wind power, and then they're not getting the wind, right. and so they're at a deficit. You can't do that. I talked to another guy out in Virginia. He has the largest solar panel farm you can have without being deemed a commercial solar farmer. And this recent hurricane that came through, his solar couldn't even power his house. And so, on the one hand, yeah, do we need to figure out new solutions? Yes. But to have no plan that bridges the gap, that's where I can see you're frustrated. That's where I think a lot of the American people are frustrated, is you can't just take people from $2 a gallon to $5 a gallon and say, deal with it. Right. And yet, that's what we've all been asked to deal with.
Well, I mean, one quick point is as we go further, just remember this, we shut down the coal mines in this country, okay, with the hopes of becoming greener. And I understand it, coal's very dirty. But in the meantime, 40% of the population before what I'm gonna tell you now was already using coal, and they're not gonna use anything else. 40% of the world uses coal for sure, because why? Because it's the cheapest source of energy, India and China. Now, what you have going on now is we're now burning a record amount of coal, and many countries are putting up brand new coal plants. Okay, so unless we're putting a dome over the United States of America, we're not going to be able to stop the pollution that they're using. And all we're really doing is destroying the middle class with, because inflation is no more than a hidden tax. Okay, you may not agree, but to me, inflation is a hidden tax, or it's taxation without representation. And that's what we're getting. And this ridiculous inflation we shouldn't have these problems. If we had a normal country running, we would be paying, $1.80 for gas, okay, and we wouldn't be outflowing more money than we're taking in.
Yeah, this is crazy, and I know that the government of Venezuela nationalized their fossil fuel industry, but I read that they pay 8 cents a gallon for gas in Venezuela.
Well, they
8 cents a gallon.
Until Maduro and the other guy ripped them out, stole all the money. Yeah. I mean, they were the richest country in the world. Okay, they had more money and more. They had no problems. They could have actually created a socialism venue there if they were. But of course, it always comes back down to the greed, right? Somebody has to take the money. But they had enough money and enough natural resources that they could have done that agenda. But of course, that's the story for another day.
Yeah. Okay, going back to the stock market then. I see in my comments section a lot of people saying, "Hey, I'm new to investing. How do I get started? Stephen, will you make a video about investing for beginners or investing for dummies?" What advice other than getting on your Monday night phone calls, what advice would you give to people that are, whether they're 30 or 50, they're just starting off in the stock market?
Well, I think, one good thing you can use is you can use like mutual funds, for example, which, there's Nuveen, there's a bunch of them who have them, or you can actually use like the spiders, this SPY or the QQQ, which are also like mutual funds. One is closed end, one is open end, which means you can trade it. I think you have to understand, what you want to buy, how much money do you want to invest, okay? Knowing that today, if you invest $5,000, it might go to 2,500 first, but over the next 20 years, it should go up. It should double twice or three times, right? And I think you just have to, again, to me, it's company selection, and company selection starts with, some of the products you use at home, right? If you really like something, maybe that's one a company you want to look into, but you want to make sure the companies that you invest in, especially if you're new, are profitable companies that make money. Okay. Everybody was all hepped up on, if you remember, Beyond Meats, right? That stock was trading at such ridiculous multiples that, first of all, it didn't make any money. Okay. And it was so well overpriced. Now it's where it should be, about $20. Okay. Versus the 220 it was trading when it first came out. Don't get caught up in the hype of markets. Don't get caught up in the hype of different stocks, because listen, wherever you look, wherever you turn, somebody's touting something. Okay. Don't be touted. Look at companies you use, look at stuff that you like, look at their balance sheet, and if they make money now and you assume they will be in business, if they're not making an antiquated product that's going to be destroyed. And I'll go to Apple Computer, for example. I mean, Apple should be in business for quite a while, as should Microsoft. Again, those in tech is what I'd be looking at. You want to look for companies that can exist, and you want to invest what you're comfortable with, that you're not going to lose sleep at night if it goes against you, where you're going to be saying, "Oh, I got to get out. I got to sell." No, you want to be able to buy more as it goes against you. So don't shoot every dime you have into the first trade. If you're new, start to invest slowly. Okay. I love to get, for new investors, dividends paying stuff. Why? Because you use what they call the DRIP program, dividend reinvestment. It does it automatically. So you end up with fractional shares, but you're trying to build wealth in a long-term portfolio over time. So don't put yourself in a lot of penny stocks and a lot of these high risk, high beta stocks, because very few of them pay off. You're looking, again, it's a long-term investment that you want to grow over time. You have extra capital, you want to gamble a little bit, that's one thing. But don't put your, what we call safe money, into very high risk products to try to get that immediate, lottery ticket, which, very few ever show up.
Yeah, I think at least during COVID, I mean, like everything was skyrocketing, and it kind of created this mentality of anything I buy that's recommended is going to go up. And really, it takes time for these companies to produce profits, create the goods, the wares, the whatevers. But like you say, if you do that research and they're cash flowing, they're profitable, they're reinvesting, they're keeping up with the times and technology, they're going to be here for a long time. And time is your friend in the market, right? Like they say, time in the market is better than timing the market, and I found that to be true over
As have
time.
I.
Yeah.
As have I listen, I've learned a lot of lessons over the years, and timing the market. Listen, can I time the market on a very short term? Yeah, I can. Okay, but very short term, right? I'm not trading. I'm not investing trying to time the market. I don't touch my investment portfolio. Okay, forget that I'm hedged, because even before I would ever hedge, I didn't touch my investment portfolio. That's how somebody who doesn't make a lot of money but it continues to pay themselves first. And I think that's another thing that people should remember. The first check you write every month should go to yourself, and it should go into your investing account, okay, like a mutual fund, whatever. And you buy little pieces. You don't have to go out and buy guns blazing right off the gun. You can build wealth. And we've all heard the story of the janitor or the garbage guy, truck driver, whatever their technical names are now, but that, never made more than 25 or 30,000. He died and he left $5 million to his cat. Okay. Well, how did he get the money? Because he left it in the market and it compounded interest over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you familiar with the name Gareth Salloway?
Yeah.
Okay. He's sometimes on Kitco and Stansberry, and he's been talking a lot about gold, and that's something that people in my community are interested in. He believes in the short term it's going to continue to go down a little bit, and he's been recommending dollar cost averaging. Just buy a little bit here because you don't know where the bottom is. And then he's saying things like, could go to 2,300 next year. I'm not asking for any kind of prediction, but people are very interested in gold and silver in my community. Could you maybe talk about the difference between buying and holding physical, and then maybe trading with, like a Newmont or something like that?
I'm a big fan of precious metals overall. Okay, I'm a physical buyer on a regular basis, and I think that people should have a representation somewhere between 5 and 15% of their overall portfolio should be in the precious metals, and should be divided between gold, silver, and platinum, in my opinion. When it comes to paper gold, like Newmont or the futures market, or GDX or Nugget, any of these stocks, to me, I'm very concerned about paper. I will never own paper gold as a long-term investment, because I'm afraid that there may not be enough gold in the country or in the world to cover the amount of paper that has been sold. I want to control my precious metals under my hands. I want them in physical, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is, God forbid, someday they may have to be used as a currency again.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, look, I don't ever want to preach fear to anybody. Okay.
Yeah.
But someday you might need them as a currency. They may be a bill of fare, maybe a trade, something you can use. And if you don't have it, what are you gonna give somebody, a slice of your paper? So I'm an anti-paper, except from a trading standpoint. Okay. I'm much more into owning physical metals, because again, you put them away, you store them, and you have no intentions of selling them, and you're holding them either as an investment for long term, like your home, or you're using for the potential there may be need as a currency at some point. We don't know that yet.
Yeah. One thing that I've thought about is, 10 million people have fled Ukraine to Poland, Moldova, Germany, all over Europe. And I have to imagine, imagine if you have enough time to gather up, and you gather up your Ukraine money, and you head into Poland or Moldova or Sweden, and you're like, okay, I'm a refugee. I'm completely starting over. I don't know when I'll be able to go back. I don't know how much value that currency has, but if they could move from Kiev to Stockholm and have Bitcoin, like a digital gold, or to have physical gold, maybe they have some Spanish gold or some African gold or Canadian gold, and they move on, and like that's real wealth that you can move with you. Of course,
Right.
taking the Bitcoin would be a lot lighter than carrying the gold, but
And if you take a big package out, you might not get out, right? So
yeah, exactly.
that is, but you are correct. And again, look, I'm a big believer in the crypto space as well. I'm a small investor in comparison to my net worth, but I do know, and I'm prepared that if it goes to zero, it goes to zero. But I do think that it has a lot of intrinsic value going forward. I think that it's the currency, in my opinion, the currency of the libertarian. Okay, I think that we're tired of the finagling of the central banks, who continue to devalue our currency. And now that you see the central banks around the globe are devaluing currency, and again, trying to get out of a country. It's one thing leaving the United States, with some gold or whatever, but you try to get out of some of these communist countries, you're not going to get out with anything more than, whatever you can put in your pockets. Basically, you're not getting out with a big package of gold. And that's a problem. So you have to have alternatives. And certainly, I mean, you can convert to crypto, go to your new destination, and convert it back to physical if you want. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. But again, you have to be very smart about how you're handling everything. And again, the physical gold from our conversation here is, or silver or platinum, they very well could be a currency again someday.
Yeah, absolutely. And if not, it's like a food storage or something. You hope to never use it, but if not, you use it down the road, or you pass it on to your family. and then they can deal with that. But it's not going anywhere, right? Like literally, if they found gold on the Titanic right now, it would still be completely intact, no problems. Okay, let's move on to you can't eat money. Let's move on to fuel and food. What are your thoughts on these? I'm reading a lot of scary information about fuel shortages and food shortages in 2023, 2024. What are your thoughts on those, and how do those affect the market?
Well, the fuel shortage shouldn't be, but they could create one. I mean, again, that I can't guarantee that government won't create the fuel shortage, right? I mean,
Or,
I
or
lived through.
OPEC drops it by 2 million overnight, and you're like, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
Right, but we have here in this country, we have a 200-year supply at current usage that we know of, without affecting or drilling deep into the environment. Okay, we've got a lifetime supply of natural gas in this country. Okay, it's our own natural resource. We don't have to worry about anybody. But again, it depends on what is created by the parties in power, right? So, but the food is a real concern, because that's, food commodities have to be grown. We're having a drought this year. We already witnessed that Australia, Argentina, Brazil had very bad crops, because they're in the opposite year, right? They're going into their summer again. They had bad crops this year. They had very little supply. And then you take Ukraine and Russia, and you take 30% of the world's wheat crop out of the equation. You take out a lot of the components that you get from them for fertilizer, okay, and suddenly you've got a shortage. And it would not surprise me if we're not paying $10 a loaf of bread in a year from now, because again, depending on how this harvest, we're like in the probably towards the tail end of harvest right now here, and the numbers are not good. Okay, and of course that's why you're seeing empty shelves and you're seeing prices rise. And again, if we have any problems going forward, we're not going to be able to produce. The production is going to be bad. And take one more step, part of that is the cost of money. Most farmers, when they farm, they borrow almost every dime, okay, to plant that, because they're speculating ahead of time that everything's going to work out for them. And they're not paying what you and I would pay for interest rates. They're paying probably 2 to 3 points over what you and I would pay. That's all part of your cost. So if you take the inputs of producing corn, Andreas and ammonia is up 400%. It takes fuel to produce it. It takes, a lot of parts plus the borrowed money. So we got a lot of issues there. And, combines are now $300,000 or $400,000. Again, it's not cheap to be a farmer. They do very well over time, but you get into a bad year, and again, then you price some out, and the small farmer gets priced out because of the cost of money.
Okay, so I mean, people definitely need to take that into account with their budgeting, and also, okay. So and then on the opportunity side, would food producers be a good stock investment to keep an eye on? Or are they going to get hit because of that?
Well, I think the commodity space in general, and I'm really referring to the grain markets and the soft commodities, are going to go into a big bull market here. As money comes out, it still needs a home to go to, and commodities are very popular for that. You take into consideration the trends and what's going on, and we've seen a very interesting trade in these markets right now, because they really haven't reacted the way I would expect them to. But because of the light volume, I think there's been some pressure held on as the bigger buyers try to buy them. And I would look into some commodities, but just be very careful. When you get into the commodity space, okay, it can be treacherous. And make sure you understand every component. If you decide to play in that space, make sure that you understand every component of that space. And in other words, there's a lot of leverage, and a lot of brokers won't tell you about leverage. They'll get you in, and the next thing you know, you get a margin call. Okay. So you can leverage up a lot with little dollars. That's not where you want to be. You never want to be in a position that you are over leveraged to your own capital, because you're for sure going to get a problem, and I guarantee you'll sell it out at the worst possible price. But again, I think that's where I would look for maybe some of the stocks that are related to some of these food processors, because again, if you're going to trade those, right, you're looking for a bull market here. Boom, we can jump in. We know what our exposures, we know what our risk is, we know what our leverage is, and then we don't have to worry about it. So yeah, I mean, listen, I think, Tyson's Foods is good. I mean, it's companies like that. I'm not making any specific recommendation.
Yeah.
Just, that's the only one that came to my head. I'm not a big fan of Smithfield's because they're owned by China. So I'm not a big fan of anything that China does. So it's hard for me to ever want to buy anything of theirs.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's a good point. But and again, this comes down to researching the company and also using companies that you're familiar with. I use Tyson Chicken all the time, and yet I just read that they're getting ready to leave Chicago because of the crime. So they're being smart to protect their asset, their brand, their income.
They'll make more money next year. Crime and taxes.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, just from taxes. But so anyway, okay. Well, I know you're very, very busy, and I appreciate you coming on. How can people get in contact with you or learn more about what you do and your awesome Monday night calls?
By the way, I'm never too busy for you. I'm always, talking to your audience is a pleasure. I hear from a lot of them, and it's, again, I love to educate. That's why I built the high school program. But anyways, you can reach me at bubbatrading.com. You can email me direct at bubbatrading.com. I'll be the one who answers. Okay. And if you want, as Stephen mentioned, I do have a Monday night call every week. And again, you're welcome to come on as my guest. We just talk for a while. It's me raging a little bit more on a lot of things, but I do go through a number of good companies that I trade, that I own, that we trade all the time. So again, anytime you want, just email me and I'll make sure I get you a link for that call. But again, you want to just learn, go to my website, bubbatrading.com. There's a lot of videos on there. I do a daily update. You can see those. Again, because really, I want to educate. At my age, where am I going now? This is all I have left, is to, pass on good knowledge to people, because, where am I going? I'm 65 years old. So I'm ready to go out to pasture.
No, you got many, many years ahead of you, but we need your wisdom, that over 40 years of trading the good, the bad, and the ugly. Todd, I appreciate you taking time out of your day coming on. Everybody can check out bubbatrading.com or email bubba@bubbatrading.com. Thank you so much for being on today.
Stephen, thank you so much. It's a pleasure, and I'm glad to be with you.
Bye-bye.